Hello everyone, and welcome to Hague's Business Winners. My name is Kev Orkian. I'm the moderator for this room. I'm also the person that keeps people in and out and keeps the room moving at all times. We've got a fantastic room here, and I'm privileged to be sharing a stage with some incredible human beings, people that I can now call my friends, and not just colleagues from Clubhouse. So let me start by I'll leave the main band till the end, but let me start by introducing you to the wonderful Abigail. Abigail Barnes is just the most beautiful woman on the planet. She is an author of a book called Time Management. She's also a productivity and strategist and online trainer. She's an awesome human being. It's an absolute privilege to have you on this stage, my darling, as always. Then let's move over to the wonderful Sharina Joshi. Sharina Joshi is a social media strategist, someone that I'm still meant to be bloody calling up and trying to sort my life out with her. But by all means, she is one of the best. And some of the stuff you see Hague's platforms advertising is all about her. She puts it all together. She's brilliant. Kurt is an absolutely awesome human being, an educational consultant, executive coach, workshop leader, business agility, conscious communication, public speaker, expert, and TEDx as well. Wow. An author of 5 different books. So welcome, Kurt. We're going to be enjoying listening to you shortly. Then we move over to the wonderful Shehi, founder and CEO of Oclas Group, angel investor, and he's also a serial entrepreneur. Thank you, Shehi, for always being here every week, week in, week out. Better than me, to be honest. And finally, we have Paul Vatistas, absolutely wonderful man and an experienced B2B consultant. So thank you so much again, Paul, for being here and being a massive supporter of the Hague's Business Winners. Now, guys, if you're listening in and you're in the audience, you want to bring your hand, you want to put your hand up and come up onto the stage, please do that. Please, please, please. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your questions, and if you've even got an answer. And if you're not following us, please follow the little greenhouse on top of the Abigail's head there, which is the Hague's Business Winners Little Greenhouse. And today's title is Using Conscious Communication as an Effective Tool, something that I do my entire life and have done as it's my main work for me as a stand-up comedian, actor, and a performer. So for me, this is a brilliant subject. So I'm just going to say thank you to everyone down below, from Sarah, Armine, Armine, I'm saying it in an Armenian accent as well. Armine, Daryl, Brian, Michael, Gevorg, and Deborah came in and left instantly. So I'm not sure what happened to Deborah, but there you go. So massive love to each and every one of you. And I'm going to pass it back out now to the main man himself, Mr. Hague Armaganian, whose room is all about strategic advising. And he is the main man himself here. He's got a new podcast out, as you know. And if you don't know, please do go onto his page. You will see it. And then follow him on Instagram so you can see everything this man is up to from Other Side of the Business Card, which is his latest podcast. And he's got a new one launching on the 21st of September. He is a main man. He flies around the world. And for me, he's one of my closest friends. Hague, back to you, my sir.
Okay, Kev. Can everyone hear me again? Let's do a final
Absolutely. Loud
audio
and
check
clear.
here. Okay, great. Well, I've got Shay and Abigail here in the studio, and Sharina, so it's nice to have a full studio here. So hopefully we won't have any sound problems that we did last time. Really excited that you're here, Kev. We missed you, I think, a couple of weeks where you've had all sorts of different fantastic excuses, just so I know I'm writing a book on them. But they are all very, very reliable and stand up as they are as your comedy. So I love it. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to Hague's Business Winners Club, where we're going to bring together industry experts, leaders, and entrepreneurs, as always, to explore a business conversation that you would not usually get at home or by your water cooler, because we bring such an eclectic set of people and minds to the table. When I started my podcast series, one of the exciting things was during lockdown a couple of years ago was that I had such a vast network across the world with different perspectives of what's happening in business and what's happening in the world, that it was through the podcast initially I started doing some of these interviews. But Clubhouse was born about, I guess, 16 months ago, and it's an absolutely fantastic forum because I can have a man who I love to talk to and spend time with, Kurt Larsson, here as a guest, and he's in Sweden. And again, it's great to have my team here in Marleybone Studio. But as I said, Kurt Larsson is an educational consultant and an executive coach. We work together. He's done amazing workshops. He's done about 5 books, I think, Kurt, which we'll go into. But I'm really kind of interested in the topic of conscious body language. And I think I read an article last week that made me think of bringing Kurt on, which was the kind of etiquette you have now on Zoom, where there was an article that someone showed me, I forgot what it was now, the source, that was saying to develop trust, you need to see people's hands on Zoom. And this might be a lot of rubbish, but I'm going to throw the question at Kurt at some point. But anyway, Kurt, you've worked in you worked in this kind of business for over 20 years to improve efficiency and effectiveness of groups and management teams. Done a lot in sales, and you've done a lot in terms of even long-term unemployed and prison inmates. So well done for that work. So it's great to have you here, Kurt. Let's just hear your voice and let us know what's happening in Sweden right now.
All righty. Well, again, thank you for inviting me on. I feel honored also and privileged to get a chance to talk to everybody here. And yeah, right now, Sweden is actually coming out of winter. It's sunny well, actually, we've had about a week of sunshine and yeah, feeling perky. So yeah, I'm looking forward to not only saying a bunch, but I actually absolutely think that listening is an important part of this, and I'm here to learn as much from the guests and everybody as hopefully they'll get some insights from me. So I'm looking forward to creating a nice open dialogue here. So anybody that is interested in asking a question, please raise your hand. I guess to start with. Um, how many people forgot their body language since they are on the telephone or on the Clubhouse and we can't see each other?
There's sort 4 hands up here in the room. Actually, there's 6 hands up. There's only 5 people, so that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, I've worked with all kinds of, this written word and body languages we're going to talk a lot about, and just public speaking in general. And I can promise you that there is no such thing as no body language. I even worked with a bunch of traders on a dealer floor. And just by, the intonation and also the feeling that you get in the telephone, you can normally sense what's going on the other end. And we'll get more into that a little bit later on. But the main point is that, there's always body language involved. And it has to do with everything from just how we say words, but also the resonance in our voices when we talk. And that's one of the most interesting things, because I've been in sales, and usually say I've sold everything from car tires in Houston, Texas, to retail banking systems in 20 different countries. Matter of fact, I also sold a ton of investment gold in terms of coins and ingots here for a number of years ago also. So pretty varied. And then, of course, selling training here for the past 20 years also. But you meet a lot of different people, needless to say. And we all have these basic human tendencies. And it's so interesting that we often forget about this fantastic conversation tool that we have with us at all times, and it costs nothing. And that is, of course, our bodies.
Right.
So to start with, really, a question for anybody: what is the source of human nonverbal communication, or maybe even human communication in any respect? Anybody got an idea?
What is the source of nonverbal communication?
Correct.
I would probably say either the brain or your chi, like your internal energy, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's good guesses, and you may be right also. This is, of course, the world according to Kurt. So there's most of what I say here is probably BS, but it works for me. So I'm inviting you to use it also, just so we're clear.
In there, I think for me, communication without the use of verbal, I think for me is energy. I know certainly I've connected with people energetically where I've not had to say anything, and I kind of understand where they are, where they're coming from. So for me, I think it would be energy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that also could be. just to move things, I know we're sort of limited on time here, but one of the things that there's a gentleman named Dr. Bruce Lipton. I don't know if anybody's heard of him. He's written a number of books on epigenetics. And he came to a very interesting point that every cell in our body, pretty much every cell on the planet, um, also has basically one large spectrum, and that is between an open cell, which has the cell walls that are open, and a closed cell where the cell's walls are closed. When the cell walls are closed, it's a protection mechanism or a protection state.
Right.
And there's nothing that can go in or out of the cell. And that regards to communication, food, and also waste. The other side of open is that the cell walls are open and that everything can come in, both in and out. And then we have a number, as you've probably seen by the body language around you and such, a number of variations in the middle there. But what's interesting is if you really, really, boil it all down, you're either in open or growth mode, as he calls it, or protection mode. And I think that's a really good place to start because you can really, just boil everything down to ones and zeros. This is a good way to do it. See if the person that you're speaking with or listening to is, in an open format or if they're in a closed format, because, your response, needless to say, can be different, whether you choose to or not. That's, of course, up to you.
Yeah.
So any questions on that? Because I think that's just such a fundamental and easy, simple way to really start to gauge body language. And you can hear that in people's voices. You can see it in the way they walk. You can, it's just ubiquitous, basically. I'll stop here and see if any questions or comments or.
No, I think you're right. I think you can tell, and I think one of the things for me is I'm often on the front line talking to customers and people. So I'm often surprised. I guess maybe 70% of the people around me who don't notice when people are in protection mode. Do you know what I mean? And to me, it's obvious that what they're saying is not going in, and they continue on for a very long time. I'm not saying I don't do it too. I'm sure there's times where I'm also in more an unconscious mode. But I think you're right. I think part of the training is really listening. Training to be really good listeners, which I've actually done in some courses. Probably my wife will disagree that I don't listen, but generally, I've tried to train myself to look like I'm listening or to actually listen. So yeah. So go on. I want you to carry on this topic, but I just want to clarify one thing. When you said nonverbal communication, I guess there's a difference because we also use the words body language. So there's a difference, obviously, if you can see the person, and there's a difference now where you can't see me, right? And
Yeah.
you certainly not even know how excited I am, but you can tell it through the voice and the energy, right? So I just want you to clarify, because I think when you said where is the source, I think even when there's even if you can't see the body language, I think I found when I was recording the podcast, if I'm standing up, it's a lot better because you have a very different energy for 45 minutes than you do if you're sitting down. So I just wanted you to clarify, when you say body language, is that also unseen body language the same as nonverbal?
Absolutely. And if you'll notice, thanks for the reminder here. I was sort of hunched over my desk here, but immediately when you said that, I sat up straight. And the wonderful thing, there's this magic force in the world called gravity. And
Right.
you'd be, it'll be fun to walk around or just, look at other people here after this, because it's so interesting to see how people relate to gravity. Gravity is one of the best healing forces that we have available. It's also one of the most powerful forces that we have. I mean, if you fall out of a building, you are going to go hit the ground. But it's interesting to see how many people fight gravity. So, what I mean here is that if I hunch over, you can sort of hear the compression in my voice right now, compared to if I just stretch out and, stretch my back out and even have a little concave in the back. Normally, when you're speaking on the telephone, and like I said, I was working with a bunch of traders here that make more money than is imaginable sometimes. And they, did the same thing. But when they really realized that the difference in the resonance of your voice when you sit up straight and can breathe all the way down into your second diaphragm here below the stomach, that will give you a much more resonant voice, and it will activate more cells in your body. And just like a Stradivarius violin, or a wind instrument like a saxophone or a trumpet or something like that, the more air that passes through freely, the more the tone is going to be deeper, it's going to be richer, and it's going to project more also.
You mean
So
like this, Kurt? Is this how you mean? I'm doing your
you notice a
diaphragm
difference in
talking.
your voice?
Yeah, I did. Everyone
Yeah,
jumped in the studio, and even there's a cat here, and the cat was scared.
yeah, it's more power. Plant your
Yeah.
feet straight, under your seat there, and literally sit. There's three parts of the sits bone. There's the back part, where if anybody that has teenagers will know that when they slouch in their chair, they're using that back part. There's really it looks cool maybe, but that has the least resistance. If you actually disagree with something, you don't have much way of fighting it off. Then there's the middle part of the sits bone, and that's usually how we just sort of sit in our chairs and use the back rest to help us support us. But then there's the front part. It's like two almost stilts that sit down. You sit on those, and it'll actually arch your back inwards. And then you can take in a whole lot more air. You can be much more projective in your voice, and more cells can vibrate, generating more resonance, which generates a deeper, richer voice, which generates more trust. Okay? And don't believe me, but test it, see if it works.
I'm actually going to just say something, because I know, Haig, you do this as well in the office, because I know we've been in a few meetings where you have Haig standing up, on calls, he's lifted up his table, and there's definitely a difference as well when you do that. You feel more engaged, and you're involved in the conversation. So yeah, very true points actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy stuff, but we just forget about it when we're in the middle of everything that's going on.
This is true.
Needless to say, the more stressed you become, the more you shut off all of this wonderful information, both internal and external. So again, the best thing to do is just relax, take a couple of deep breaths, and enjoy, whatever's going on.
Well, Kurt, I've taken my deep breath. I'm enjoying you, even though you're in Sweden. But I want to just ask a couple of questions first, and then hand off, because I know a few people in the room have got questions. So I want to just get back to this thing that someone had shown me about getting trust on Zoom, because a lot of times we don't get to meet a lot of people now for maybe 6 months at a time. So maybe just what you thought of that people want to see people's hands, and then maybe just a couple of other tips, especially for people who are pitching or in sales. What is things that you shouldn't do, maybe like on a Zoom call, maybe a couple of things, and what are the things you should be doing on a Zoom call? And I know some of the obvious ones. Obviously, I try not to slouch. I try not to look like I'm looking at my phone, and all that stuff. Certainly have the air conditioning on so I don't sweat, then people never trust me. But what are your few things there that we should take away?
Okay. Well, needless to say, the using gravity, as a friend of mine once said, being upright instead of uptight. If you and this goes for standing also. If you can come up slowly on the balls of your feet, the front part, the pads of your feet there, come up and go back down without falling forward or falling backward, you are in fact using gravity. If you fall forward or fall backward, it means that you're off balance, and it's not as connected as you would be could you stand straight up and down. It's a very interesting exercise.
Great.
So that's one thing. Getting back to your original question here on Zoom and using hands and such, from a presenter's perspective, the more of you can show, the more of you that's transparent and works basically. So yeah, I absolutely suggest using your hands and body language, and actually taking some deep breaths where people can see it, because it's a very powerful thing to do. And I usually describe it as this: if you don't want to use your body language, just send an email. It's a lot quicker. So that works. But from the other side, from the viewer's side, it's very interesting, because the body somehow, and again, don't believe me, but test it, the body somehow knows what is being shown right now. And whatever it is that you're trying to hide will usually come out someplace anyway. And probably the most potent example of that is a former president that was quoted one time as saying, "I did not have sex with that woman." And if you really look, he wasn't looking at the camera. And right between his eyes, up in the like the third eye place there, right between the eyebrows, it was very, very scrunched up. It was very tense, and like, "Don't look at me, don't look at me." So there's,
Right.
it will show up.
Yeah.
Believe me. So the more you can just be transparent, the more you can just tell the truth, the more it'll pay back. It'll be much
Yeah.
better.
Well, remind me now to answer any personal questions to Kurt, because you can tell whether I'm lying or not. So good. I want to open up for questions to the others. We're kind of nearly put my glasses on because it's steaming in here. But maybe, Kev, you want to do a quick reset of the room, and then let's come back with some questions. If you flash your mics, if you've got questions, that'll be great, and then we can kind of put you in an order. But over to you, Kev.
Absolutely, not a problem at all. Do you know what? This is an absolutely fantastic room. I do miss this room when I'm not available to pop in, which is quite rare. But being away for the last couple of weeks, it's been manic for me. So just missing being here, and hearing Kurt, particularly with everything you've just mentioned already, Kurt, is massively influential and beneficial to anyone who wants to understand, people as such, and how to communicate. So I think that's a fantastic start to the room. We're already 1:25. We've got 35 minutes left. The room is open. I'm going to pass it back over to Haig, but I do know that our wonderful Melissa has been tapping her mic for the past 15 minutes, and I've been quite conscious of that as well, because I know when Melissa starts, she's awesome and she's got some great energy. So I'm going to pass it back over to Haig. Haig, I'll get you to invite the wonderful Melissa to ask the first question.
Absolutely. And then we'll line up the following questions. But Melissa, great to have you on again. Of course, how is life now that you're a published author and you're in demand, and you're bringing down the world's paper supplies by the books flying out on Amazon? How does it feel?
It's amazing. Thanks, Peg. Oh, do you know what? I love your energy and your humor as well. Yeah, I don't think I've quite made it yet. I could probably make a bed or a desk out of the books that I've still got left. So no, but it's brilliant. I tell you what, it's good because, if you put a lot of your work and your content into something, you can repurpose that and use it in different ways. So yeah, it's amazing, and to hear the feedback is really fab. But I'm loving this conversation. On to Kurt. Like, this is so good, and I get so into the psychology of this and digging in. And it reminds me of when I worked in London, and I was when I was working in the fitness industry. So I was working as a personal trainer and fitness manager in this gym. And in the middle of London, obviously, you get all sorts of different cultures, backgrounds, and there would always be a certain percentage of people that would join up to the gym that had no idea how to speak English, couldn't communicate with me, and I had to show them how to use the gym equipment. So, the speed of it, how many times you had to use it. And I became quite a good mime artist at it. But it just goes to show, like you're saying, that, there's so much that goes into body language that we're saying without even using the words. But I'm interested to know, my question is, you talked about Bruce Lipton, you talked about the open cell and the closed cell, and this fascinates me. Whilst I know about kind of the sunflowers and a bit about the apple in the jar, kind of, to sort of experiments, is there any other exercises or experiments that you know of or you use in like workshops or training that you could share with us to sort of demonstrate that? That was my question.
Okay. I'm trying to
Great
think what would
question.
work without any kind of visuals here. I may have to get back to you on that. A number of the things that I've already said. I mean, just moving around in your chair. One of the things about body language, and I don't think I actually mentioned it, but well, let's see, it's more than 25 years ago. I had a very personal tragedy here. In 1 year, I lost my father, my firstborn daughter, and my job. And needless to say, that'll shake anybody's anchor in life. So I was looking for, something to just basically work through the sorrow and such. And I came upon a guy named Don McFarland who worked with something called body harmony. And it's a hands-on conscious touch type of application. It's a healing method, if you will. And it worked so well. I'm now a international body harmony teacher also, and work with this hands-on conscious touch method. But the interesting thing is that you can literally start to sense what's going on. The more you open up, okay, back to the open cells and such, the more you can relax, the more you can take in some deep breaths. I mean, everybody probably knows that if you're stressed or something, what does your best friend say to you? Take a deep breath. But normally, what do? We take it in like this. And what does that do? Does that stress you more or does it relax you? Okay, it's the out breath. That's going to give you much more relaxation. And that's actually where the healing starts, on the out breath or the exhale rather than on the inhale. So, if you're stressed or something like that, yeah, take a deep breath, but focus on the exhale. Even the Marines talk about that when the landing craft door goes down. They're all taught to take a deep breath and exhale as soon as you leave, because you get into the new atmosphere as quickly as possible. So those of you on sales calls, for instance, when you grip the door to walk into your customer's room, breathe out and open the door. Take a nice deep breath in and just get this new atmosphere in, and you'll, very much more quickly, much more effectively come into the situation within the room itself. That's something I've been using for sales for many years
Great.
now. What else? Well,
Okay.
needless to say, eye contact. But how am I doing on time here? Do I have
No, we're
time for
good. I
one
want
more?
to go. I've got other people in the back chat who want to have some questions, Kurt. So I'm going to go to Abigail first, and others who want to flash their mics. Then we'll put you in the queue. And then I also just wanted to welcome some new people who have come up to stage. Julia, absolutely fantastic to see you. Thank you for joining. Daryl, all the way in California. He was talking about the Marines. So Daryl is ex-Naval Sea Command. So lovely to have you here, Daryl, and hopefully hear from you. Sarah, who's obviously part of our team. Nice to see you on stage as well. So I think we've introduced everybody else. So over to you, Abigail, for a question. And then I think Paul's got a question. He was flashing or clapping. But we'll go to Paul, and then anyone else who wants to come up, feel free to come up. Cheers.
Well,
Hold on, start again, sorry.
I actually feel really, really chilled out now, Kurt, after listening to you, so much so that I'm trying to really come back to my question that I wanted to ask. So obviously your part of your experience is around training speakers. Now, subject to like everything else I do, I'm an international speaker. So one of the things that I've had to learn, and this is building on what Haig was saying earlier, is really how to influence online. I'm very, very used to doing it from a stage when people can see my full body. So trying to do it then from Zoom calls and from online has become sort of a new skill set. So I guess my question is really, what would be your top tips for leaders today who are finding themselves having to empower their teams who are remote teams around the world? What is like one or two things that they could do to really influence in a positive way so that people aren't switching off. I heard someone say last week that one of the reasons why we're having Zoom fatigue in many ways is because we're not getting the dopamine hit that we used to get from the in-person. So we're having the same information sent to us, but we're not having the reward of that in person, which is why we love it. So I guess what is it that we can really do to empower our teams and get them excited without obviously the in-person?
Okay, well, thanks for the question. And oh man, how much time do we have?
Not enough.
I will take the one that comes up the most, but I have a couple of other ones that'll probably pop up here also. The body is very interesting because it divides itself up. You got the upper part, the lower part, the front part, the back part, the left, right, etc., etc. And one of the things that's very, very interesting is that the brain, or the two hemispheres of the brain, are connected to opposite sides of the body. So, for instance, the left side of your brain is the decisive, the projective, the calculative, the measuring, the accountant in us all, and that is connected directly to the right hand side of our body. Whereas the left side is the poetic, the receptive, the soft, the poetic, the musical, all of the other stuff, and that's connected to the left side of your body. It has nothing to do with whether you're right-handed or left-handed, which normally comes up about 1 million times, but it has to do with the wiring, the hard wiring, and that works with the eyes and also with the body itself. So if you want to make an important point, you want to underline something that you just said, lean in with the right side of your body. It's going to be more powerful. Okay, test this in a mirror, check it out. Again, don't believe me, but test it. The right side is going to give you much more power to give you more of a command over the people that you're listening to. On the other side, if you want to literally show that you're open for questions, open up on your left side. For those of you that do get the privilege of standing on stage nowadays, same thing works on stage. Especially if you're using a PowerPoint presentation, you want to stand to the stage right, so you have your left hand, you can point to the different points on your PowerPoint slides, and you can address the audience with your right hand. So that's two things. Then, okay, I'll stop there because, like I said, I can just babble on forever. Does that give you one good tip anyway?
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. I love the using the left and the right sides of the stage and your hands and all those things. So I think I might have picked some of that up through NLP, but I guess we can have this conversation longer another time.
Great. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Kurt. I want to go over to Paul next, I think. Paul?
Yeah, hey, hi, Kurt. How are you?
Good, Paul.
Listen to you. My question is really about in things that I've done before or seen before about communication. There's a sort of well-trodden adage about, if you're standing up in front of people presenting something, they are responding about 10% to what you say, something like 30% to how you sound, and the rest to how you look. Is that something that you would agree with? It sounds like a lot of what you're detailing involves body language, body movement. So is that adage kind of still true today, in your opinion?
Well, that's probably the best. I can't remember the gentleman's last name, but his first name is Abraham, and the last name will come up here shortly. But this was a research project that was done at the UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles here in 1966. And he basically came up with, after interviewing a number of people, if I remember it correctly, 7% of your message is through your words. And he actually did it with not percentages, but I think it was logarithmic or something like that. But the percentages are about Abraham. Oh, I can't remember his last name right now. But anyway, 7% is the use of the words, your word choice and your word usage. 38% is approximately the gestures and the breathing and the delivery of those words. And then the 58, and if you, for those of you that are up good at math, you'll notice that that's not 100%. 58% approximately is, as he put it, facial expression. But I would absolutely say that it's more just everything else, body language and so forth. So, and AT&T, the big phone company in the United States, use that to base a lot of their research on, and it's, what is it, 60 years on, it's one of the most quoted things. And yes, but you want to think about it as a pyramid. So that 7% with the words is probably the first row of blocks at the bottom rather than at the top. And then it goes up the other way. So it is important that you choose the correct words, but then the more you can align yourself with your thoughts, your words, and your expression, your body language and such, needless to say, the more powerful that's going to be. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. I think I just Googling while you were talking. Is it Abraham Hicks that you're thinking of?
No, it's
No.
not
All right,
Abraham.
wrong
It's
Abraham. Okay.
I'll try to figure it out here, but
Great. Thank you.
yeah. Anybody else, or should I just babble on here? I got plenty of other stuff.
Well, this is Daryl. I have a comment, I guess.
No, hold on. Oh, yes, sorry about that. Is it Abraham? What is it?
Abraham Goleman.
Nope.
Goleman.
Oh, okay,
It's
it's okay. It's okay, Kurt. We're just using this as part of the quiz show here. But in the meantime, Daryl's got a question. Daryl, welcome.
Thank you.
Business Winners. Do you have a comment or a question?
Well, yeah, just a comment. I'm not sure if there's a question in there, but I definitely am enjoying the conversation and insights. It made me think of two things that I'll just quickly share. One is when you speak of nonverbal communication in general. I studied martial arts for many years, 40 years to be exact, and I learned Tai Chi from a little man in Beijing who, I mean, it's a classic story. I mean, he was cleaning the gym, but the fact of the matter was he was a seriously high grandmaster patriarch of a particular branch of Tai Chi Chuan. And he couldn't speak any English. 20 of us were there for a seminar and a tournament. And he taught us 2 weeks of Tai Chi, never ever really being able to speak English. We didn't speak Mandarin, but we all learned the form. I do it to this day. And he was such a special man because when we all left, everybody cried and everything. But he was so delicate. He was so intentional. And you could tell when he placed his foot, and the martial arts is in the body, right? It's like Aikido or something like that. But you could tell the way he would help you to place your foot exactly what he meant with the intention of his demonstration plus you mimicking his movements. But that was one thing. Another thing, it reminded me, listen to everyone speak about it, was I did a podcast myself for a little bit on the renewable energies and such. And one of the guys I interviewed, who was an actor who was also very active in the community, he more or less, after we went offline, he explained to me he had worked in radio a long time. He did something. He said the audience, and this might be really applicable when you're talking about online and Zoom and all of that. But he said the audience can hear you smile with your voice. And I thought, oh, how interesting. So how do you, maybe that's the question there. When he said to me that on radio, you need to ensure as a disc jockey of sorts that the audience can hear you smile, which is almost like projecting an attitude while really not being able to see the body or anything. And the last point I'll make is I did take a class in somatic psychology, and I thought that had a really profound effect on how the body should be in you communicating. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Good conversation.
Yeah, just a comment on the when I was working with the dealers. I mean, this was the most prominent example. They could feel. Well, let me make it more practical, especially for those of you in sales or in decision-making roles, which I doubt there's one that's not in this group. But how can you tell if somebody agrees with you? What's the easiest way to do that? Any ideas?
No. I mean, I guess yes. I mean, I guess again, I I tend to probably have a stronger, deeper eye contact. Again, not a defensive position, like arms folded, or so to see how they are.
Well, even on the telephone, let's make it a little bit harder for you, Haig.
Well, if they're looking to interrupt a lot, or if they're not letting you finish, I think is probably the first sign. The heavy breathing, throwing their mug of coffee across the room, which happens a lot.
Well, I don't know
That's
if
the
you'd
kind
be
of guy I am.
agreeing at that point.
Yeah. Cursing. I don't know.
He,
Tell
he
us.
didn't say disagreeing. He said agreeing, right?
Oh, well, no, but I just remember because I see them disagreeing, and yeah, the agreement on the phone for sure is it's harder to tell, but I think disagreeing it's harder for a lot of people to hide their discontentment. But whereas again, I could be really happy listening to somebody, but I'm not, salivating or anything. I look pretty normal, but I also have been studied in one of the courses I did, which was really, really cool. They were like, we were in groups of 5 and we went through each emotion. So I had to talk about something that for 2 minutes. So you pick the subject, and then as you talk, different signs of either angry or happy. And we were told how we change by the people opposite us being either angry, happy, concerned, and we got some great feedback. And it's harder for me to spot if someone's agreeing, except that they're not disagreeing.
Okay, well, you get points for trying anyway.
Okay. So
Anybody
that's
else have
basically 1
has
out
a
of 10.
suggestion real quick?
Well, what I do, this is when a person is actually seeing you. I don't know how you could do it when you're not being seen, but I sort of do what I call put folks in autobot, whereas I'm suggestive with my head movement up and down as I'm speaking to see if they're not going to join me with moving the head up and down in agreement, then I know I have more work to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, needless to say, everything you've mentioned works, but what I love is simplicity. And I also, something we haven't really talked about, I'm a word nerd also. I love looking into the etymology of words and where they come from and such. And the word agreement comes from agreer, which is Latin, which also means to please. Okay, so think about that in terms of feeling. How do you feel when you're pleased? And what's your breathing like also? So to answer the question very directly, an agreement normally, unless there's, I have an interesting little side thing here, but agreement normally happens on the exhale. Yeah, that sounds good. Because one of the things about agreement is that there's really nothing else to do but to start on the next thing. Because if you take the opposite effect, if they're not in agreement and they say, oh, okay, I'll do it. Okay, you feel a tension in my voice. You don't even have to see me to feel that. And not only that, but you on the other side of the telephone, you're going to be feeling the same thing. Okay, it's going to be very tough for you to be like this while they're, okay, I'll do it on the other side. And needless to say, I'm exaggerating, but I'm sure you've all heard of the word polite. I mean, it's not as used these days now as it used to be, and everybody knows it has to do with manners and such. But you know what it also means?
No.
Pissed off lightly.
Oh.
So, and especially in Sweden here, there's a lot of very polite people. They'll nod and they'll say, okay, it sounds great. I'll give you a call next week sometime, and you'll never hear from them again. So basically so what I'm saying is just, listen, feel what's going on. Do you feel pleased? Do they feel pleased on the other end? Are they exhaling?
Yes.
Are they inhaling? And, it'll go cut right to the chase there. Because if they do sound stressed, there's more to agree with. There's more things that are still up in the air. So, then go back to your questioning, go back into, the objection handling here. Okay, it feels like we're not 100% there yet. Is there something missing?
Yes.
That's all you got to say, and just let them speak.
Oh, absolutely, Kurt. You are absolutely right. How's that? I want to go to Sarah next. I think she came up with a question. We're going to get through everybody in the hour. I also want to see if Kev has any. Tells me off on video for sure. So, about
Hey, you're cutting in and
Am
out
I?
there.
Can you? Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to go over to Sarah. Sarah, so do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, just a really interesting conversation. Really enjoying everything you're bringing to the table for us, Kurt. So thank you for that. But
Thanks.
we're in a people industry. We work with people all the time, and meeting people in person is so much easier to read the body language. And when you detect a slight negativity in body language, I think it's a lot easier to actually turn that around. You can do it through your smiles, your gesticulating, all sorts of different things, changing the topic very slightly. And I think there's lots of things you can do. How would you say that we do that on Zoom calls? Because we've moved to this world of having to do so much more online, possibly with cameras switched off with certain people who don't want to be seen on the calls, and so you're just hearing their voice. But have you got a few
Sort of like
tips for
this.
us? Yeah. Have you got a few tips for us about if you're reading it, that you're getting negativity from the other person, or what your message isn't actually going through? Have you got any tips about how we can actually turn that around?
Yeah, well, first of all, just to identify it, again, trust your gut feeling. And, listen to what's going on in your body. I think I talked about this Swedish word a couple of weeks ago. Lee heard hit to listen with all the senses. So just listen to yourself. Are you feeling tense? Are you, is your breathing very, very calm and relaxed? Are you starting to get a little bit tense in your breathing and such? These are good signals to signal what's going on the other end of the telephone. Because again, most of the time, if not all of the time, you're probably going to sync with that other person on the other end. It's very, very unusual that somebody is just happy as they can ever be and the other person is angry as they can ever be. That just, it's not going to stay that way for very long if it's indeed true. So that's the first thing, is just to sense what's going on. And then I can't stress this enough. We actually should probably talk about this in another hour, but ask some questions. And again, one of the best questions is basically what's missing. What it feels like, and start from yourself. If I'm getting a feeling here that we're not 100% in agreement, is there something missing for you? And just invite them into that conversation rather than making it wait a second, you're wrong. That shuts everything. We talk about in body work, the difference between compression and expansion. Okay, and you can hear that in a sentence, just the word but and. But is compressive. Yeah, it sounds good, but. All right, you feel a door shut right there? Compared to it sounds good, and can we do this also? You got an opening there. So again, word choice, and just keeping on a positive note. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Hey, Kurt, we got about 10 minutes left. I wanted to just dig into again. We have a very common theme in our businesses and our focus, which is business agility. And I know you're part author of a book coming out this week called Radical Business Agility. We had a Handsome Melon last week. What's that? Yeah.
Ta-da!
So, ta-da! Yeah. So you did that so in tune. I thought it was somebody adding it in from a machine here. But anyway, well done. So in addition to your talent to do ta-da and all that, you were a contributor in the book. So I just wanted to see, how does this background that you've got of 5 books in this kind of unconscious or conscious communication, not unconscious. I think most people are probably unconscious, but in your background, how does that tie into being agile or being an agile leader or being, I guess being out there, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for the question and the segue there, because I absolutely can't comprehend being an agile business person these days without having the top communication skills, which of course now include reading and adjusting your own body language. And I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. There was a gentleman that I know here from one of these think tanks that basically said something brilliant. I thought that going forward, everything that can be done with muscle will be done by a machine. Everything that's done with calculating or whatever, or with your brain, is going to be done by a computer. So what's left for us? And for me, it's an absolute, dead ringer that we are going to have to learn how our value as employable people, our value as leaders, is going to have to do with the way that the effectiveness of your communication skills. So the more we get into that, the higher value you're going to have in terms of leading a group. There's a difference between leadership and management. Again, this could be a whole topic for itself, but leading means that people will follow you. Managing, it comes out of it's an anachronistic term from the industrial age where you had to manage scarce resources. Right now, at least for the next couple of days, we're not in that. We have abundance around here. So how can you lead people, especially those under 30? For any of us that have children, you know that it's just impossible. I'm sure every generation says this, but you have to address them in a way to invite them rather than give them ultimatums.
Right, totally. Good.
That's the short answer.
Yeah. As we're getting short of time, just want to see if any of the panel here have any kind of closing comments. Melissa, you've been pioneering emotioneering. So how does that fit into what you've heard today?
Yeah, we're driven by our unconscious, ultimately emotion, we have the emotion, we are driven by emotion first. The thinking and the rationale comes second. So, what Kurt's saying about that kind of psychology of the body language is so interesting. And I actually, on a note, I just wanted to add a comment. I loved what you were talking about, the out breath. And I've, the agreement happens in the out breath. But what I've also noticed, Kurt, and I don't know whether this is a correlation, is that you could be talking to somebody in a Zoom call or on a sales call, and you can hear them breathe and exhale quite deeply out. And for some people, they could say that was a huff they were getting, they sound like they're bored or whatever. But it could actually, are you saying that it could actually be that they're actually totally in agreement with you?
Well, it depends, of course. If you're asking them a direct question and their answer involves them first, okay, that sounds good. That's completely different than, okay, we can do that. They might have just ran from the bus or something like that. So it's the context is a very, very important part of that. You have to take in the whole situation. So
good point. Good point. Thank you. Appreciate your answer. And I loved your answer earlier as well, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Julie, you have a comment or a question?
I have a comment. So thank you, Kurt, for all sharing all your experience and knowledge today. I've just come off a 4-day public speaking training course actually over the weekend.
That's
and that's where I heard the statistics of the percentages again there too. And so I'm completely in agreement with you. And I was very interesting to hear about your your stage positioning regarding being to the stage left of the PowerPoint presentations. That wasn't brought up. It was done in a completely different way. But yeah, that was really interesting. And I just wanted to say that a lot of the stuff that you were saying was also being said in the course I was on at the weekend. So thank you.
Okay, great. Oh, and thank you. It just popped in. Abraham Morabian. Morabian's sympathetic index is, Paul, what you were looking for here, or what we were talking about here a while back.
Okay.
Abraham Mehrabian. I think he's actually on YouTube also, for anybody that's interested.
Apparently he wrote a book called The Silent Messages in 1971.
Yep, probably, because he's way past his he's getting up there in age right now. So that was because his study was 1966, like I said.
Yeah. Daryl,
hey, do I have? Okay.
I'll come back to this just to see what Daryl's got to say, and then I'll give you the last, well, pre-last words, because I'm going to see if Kev's there to do a quick wrap as well. Daryl.
Yes, thank you so much, Kurt, for all your insightful comments. I have one question related to when you're communicating either online, on Zoom, or face to face for that matter. When you know you're dealing with someone and it's a tense situation, whether their position is fundamentally at odds with your position on a topic, and from the get-go they're not receptive. I mean, what's your advice with those difficult kinds of conversations or communications?
Okay.
Good
Well,
question.
the body language again is going to be a giveaway. There's going to be people that are just completely shut down, and this is a good, perfect opportunity here to. I was going to make one final little tip comment, if you will. There's, probably most of you in this audience has heard of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic systems in our bodies. Sympathetic being the one that's fight, flight, freeze, and then parasympathetic is the learning uh, um, part, if you will, really breaking it down to simplicity here. But the interesting thing about the parasympathetic system is that you can really notice how open people are for learning by looking around. If you think of one of those Mardi Gras masks that covers the eyes and goes over the nose there, that area of the body is going to show mostly whether you're open for something or you're closed. If you're squinting and have this judgmental look, you're shut down. Don't even try, basically. But if you're open, think of a child I keep telling everybody the best body language coach, where you can find the best body language coach? On a playground. Okay? 2, 4, 6-year-old, something like that, before they learn how to adjust themselves in society. I mean, breathing like crazy. Oh wow, what are we going to do today? It's just they're infected with their joy and their hope. So especially with somebody that's really giving you a hard time, just open up and be, I would call it professional, childish curiosity. And basically it feels a lot like we're not even close to being in agreement. Does that ring true for you? Are we in agreement on that? So have some fun with it. The worst they can do is throw you out.
Yeah, I think I've done that, and I think they have thrown me out, but it's worked 90% of the time. So so I agree with that. Did you want to have a final say there? And if Kev is there, flash his mic. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap without him. But Kurt, did you have a final comment?
No, actually, that was it. I just wrapped it right in there. The thing about if you're, watch for the area around the eyes. If it's relaxed and open and the eyes are bright, boom, they're listening. If it's shut, if it looks judgmental, if it looks like they're, really, really picking over every single word, they're comparing, they're contrasting, they're doing anything but opening up for a dialogue.
Great. Well, thank you, Kurt. We're out of time, so I'm going to start wrapping up this room. Thanks to some of my main mods, especially Kevin, Abigail, who have helped set up this room today, and for the other mods coming on, Melissa, Julie, for Daryl stepping up, and Sarah and Shay. Thanks for everyone in the audience for listening in, and it's going to be a fun one next week. So watch out for the LinkedIn and Instagram announcements of who's on next week in the studio, and mainly Kurt Larsson. Thanks to you for joining me, along with my business winners. Great questions
Pleasure.
from everyone there. Kurt, really interesting stuff, which motivates me to read more of your books and find out more about the TED Talk you did. We will have a summary of this session available both on Instagram and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my main form of communication in the kind of consulting and industry that we're in. We do a lot of strategy consulting to a lot of mid-sized companies to large corporate, a lot of engineering sectors, and we pretty much become their co-pilot for growing their companies and building their businesses. So if there's any interest there, give us a shout as well on either Instagram and LinkedIn. But more importantly, wish you all a very fantastic, fun, safe, healthy week ahead, and then we'll see you next week at 1 p.m. GMT Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.